Today we're sitting down with award-winning rural generalist First Nations doctor, Dr. Sarah Jane Springer.
And at the end of the day, we're trying to develop a culturally safe system, right? And cultural safety, by definition, can only be defined by the people in which are receiving the care.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, but if you'd like to watch the interview in full, then pop over to Spotify or YouTube.
So we're grateful today to be joined by Dr. Sarah Jane Springer, proud First Nations woman who has recently been recognised by the Australian College of Rural and Remote Medicine for her outstanding contribution to First Nations healthcare. Welcome, Sarah Jane, to It Takes Heart.
Yama, Marangul. So thank you for inviting me to come and have a yarn with you guys today. I'd like to give an acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the lands that we're on today, so the Yugara and the Turrbal people, and give a big up acknowledgement as well to my Wiradjuri elders that are the knowledge holders and passers on of information and culture and presence and understanding of the ways in which we know, be and do as First Nations people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start with your connection to country.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Yep. So I grew up in Mudgee, which is a very bougie little spot.
It is now. It is very bougie now.
Yeah.
Was it like that when you grew up there?
No, not at all. Yeah. So it is kind of really warming to see that the place is quite touristy and often comes up on the list of most popular places, small country towns to go. But Mudgee's located in central west New South Wales. So nice little hub between, so it's an hour and a half to Dubbo, 2 hours to Orange, an hour and a half to Bathurst. So it's in the nice little sort of nestled in a beautiful wine region, essentially. And it's really foodie and has amazing cultural sites. So that's the main reason why, I connect to place and home and want to get back often is just to celebrate and to, get that energy back from country, and that keeps inspiring me to move forward and do what I do.
And so talk to us about growing up there. What was it like at that time?
How did it shape who you are today?
Yeah, great question. I think so. I mean, I've answered this sort of question a lot. So I've given it a lot of thought and unpacked it from lots of different angles in the past. But thinking about, so my parents are now passed, but thinking about my journey as a child and what influenced or shaped my interest in sort of humanities, I guess, in helping people and caring for people probably comes directly from both my parents. So my father more practically, so he was a police officer when I was first young. So that sense of, community spirit and wanting to help and
service.
Service sort of thing. But to be a good, healthy, happy family man and someone that was quite passionate about staying on country himself, he got out of the police force around the time I was about 2, 3, because he was meant to go down to Sydney and it just didn't really fit with where we're at. So for him to fulfil his ongoing service sort of passions for community, he joined the volunteer rescue squad. So my memories as a child was often, the CB radio squawking in the background and that anticipation and adrenaline that was always in the house in terms of like when they have to go out and help with car accidents or fires or, the latest issue that was happening in town. So I think just watching him do that and be of importance to community and really helpful, I think that they're my first memories of, what it was to serve. And then in terms of my mum, which I haven't actually given much sort of recognition to in terms of her influence on me and my medical career, is she was quite unwell actually when I was about 10. And I think, and when I say unwell, she had renal cell carcinoma. So as a 10-year-old, you can imagine when you being told that your mum's got cancer and that she has to have her whole kidney removed, it's like a really intense situation, makes you grow up really quickly and take on all that accountability and responsibility. And
did you have siblings in the home? And
you had a very interesting sibling arrangement. So I'm one of 8, but it's a blended family.
Yes.
I'm the youngest of that crew, and my oldest niece and nephew lived with us. So they were like my siblings. So one was the same age as me and the other was 2 years younger. So my responsibility was to care for them and look after them. And so at 10 it was a lot to take on. I mean, she got through that quite well.
Yeah.
But it was that early influence, I guess, of exposure to the healthcare setting and what that looks like from a rural and regional perspective as well. And I think layering on top of that too, I had appendicitis when I was about 8. And I remember it was the same couple, so husband and wife team, that actually delivered me was the same, or one of them, I think it was the husband, diagnosed me with appendicitis, and they operated, their clinic was out of their house, and it was this grand, beautiful home on this beautiful gardens and things. I'll just never forget that type of thing. And just being, picked up or assessed after hours in their home, and then an ambulance picking us up from the clinic, not necessarily the hospital, and then being transported to Dubbo, which is an hour and a half later. It was quite scary.
Yes.
And I think that is an influence that has laid down that whole passion for, access to care. And I know that sounds crazy, being an 8-year-old, right? But I do think that helps to lay down those memories.
Down those memories, yeah.
And I remember when I got to Dubbo, Mum and Dad couldn't stay with me at that particular point because they had to go back home and work and what have you. So there was that isolation as well, and that, the fear of not having your parents there with you when you've just had an operation or about to have an operation. And there was this young 2.5-year-old that had gotten hit by a car from another nearby town that had broken both her legs and was in traction or whatever. So I used to go down and feed the baby like a bottle and spend time with her because her parents weren't there either. So it was just, I guess my point is there, they were my early influences about how important it is that rural and remote people get just as good access to healthcare as possible, and that, we need more kind of robust wraparound care, not just the medical care itself, but the social aspects.
I was about to say, it's everything, isn't it?
Yeah. So at that point, there was no social workers for kids that came past, or Aboriginal liaison officers in hospitals that, could just come and check in on you or connect back with your parents or something. Nurses and doctors are busy. But I see nowadays, hopefully, there's more sense of that wraparound care and just being able to look after people a bit more holistically.
So when those sort of circumstances happen now, as an example, what would you foresee happening if that was today?
Yeah, well,
in the same town,
Yeah, I mean, whether it does happen or not, but my gold standard would be that there would be paediatric social workers that you'd be able to link in with, that communicate back to, say, the social worker team in Mudgee, and that there's that more understanding of, who's going where, and that awareness of, who's vulnerable, who might need extra assistance, what does that look like for each individual family, and really, I guess that's it, individualising care based on their needs. And I guess that's the whole sense, isn't it, of the difference between equity and equality, and making sure that we're hitting that equity space and getting to know our patients really well. But having a well-serviced workforce that's operating from a healthy, happy place themselves is what is required to be able to, execute that in a way that that hits the mark. So when we're still, trying to mop up the workforce shortage and everyone's under the pump and a bit stressed and, not operating to their full potential as an individual, then it's very difficult to give from an empty cup, I think. So, our rural and remote workforce are often operating from that space. So it makes it difficult to really operationalise what is gold standard and what should happen. And what makes and what makes it a difference in terms of the outcome for a patient and what actually happens.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to that a little bit later. But if you think about, so they were your early influences. What about actually getting into medicine as you became older? How easy was that? What was your journey into medicine?
Was it always medicine?
Yeah, was there other things first?
So no is the answer. Did not even in my wildest dreams think that I had the smarts or the intelligence, or it just wasn't there. I knew that I wanted to do something in service, something community service driven, which is, I was thinking about things like, which doesn't straight away think about service, but journalism was up there in terms of nowadays, the podcasts and the investigative journalism. I really, if that was around when I was, going through that decision phase of what to do, I would have jumped all over that. because I love listening to, Hadley Thomas and his, unpacking of those different cases like Teacher's Pet and Night Rider and oh my God.
I think just deeply curious as a person.
So I love all of that. So journalism was up there. Teaching was another one. I thought that, I could potentially be a good teacher. I'm quite charismatic and enjoy unpacking concepts and communicating those. But in saying that, when in year 11 and 12 I did HPE, I'm sure you guys, which is not necessarily sport related.
No.
Yes. It's quite high level.
Yeah.
But I had a fantastic teacher, and I usually give him a big shout out as well. So good old Rob Dog O'Connor, back there in Mudgee, still lives at home. He was just a phenomenal teacher, and I think, again, he probably influenced me to think about teaching. But at the end of the day, I did really, really well in this HPE, and it got me thinking about the human body, and that sort of shaped me into thinking about health related fields. So I ended up putting things down like physio, thinking in my head as well, there's no way I'll even get the marks for that.
It's funny that you say that, because I remember going through, and it was like if you didn't have the smarts, I felt like you had to be the smartest, physio, medicine, all of those things, because I was the same. I was very interested, but I was like, I don't think I'm smart enough.
Yeah. And you just have this perception, right, that it's just going to be so hard. And only the smartest kids with the most, immaculate backgrounds and all the support in the world.
The ducks of the school.
Would get through. Yeah. So that definitely wasn't me.
Physio was in there as well. What else?
Yeah, so physio, OT, dietetics. I had all of those kind of like health related.
In that health space.
Yeah. And thinking to myself, oh, well, I'll try one, and if I don't get through, then we'll shift around a little bit. But I went on a careers market day in Dubbo. So our school organised a bus. We all went over there. And I saw these two like aunties, beautiful black faces in the workshop area, or, looking after their little stall. And I just went up for a yarn, really. And they were under the umbrella of Newcastle Uni. So that would have been the spot the most closest realistic place for me to go that wasn't too far from home. Yeah. So I kind of just entered the conversation curious about what they had to offer. And we got chatting, and then they're like, have you ever thought about medicine? And I went, no. And then they talked to me about that and just made it so believable that it was possible. And they talked about this Aboriginal entry program, which was not a new phenomenon at that stage. I think, don't quote me, but it was the 80s that was the first Aboriginal entry program that happened through Newcastle Uni. Ordinarily, I'd have that number in my mind, but I don't today. But anyhow, they gave me a brochure and just sort of said, keep in contact, see how you go, but you might want to think about it quickly because the
applications are closing.
And they had a different process. You didn't have to necessarily wait for your TR or your UAI or whatever they call it these days, ATAR.
Yes.
But it was an interview process which was really quite rigorous in terms of, and I love this, that they've kind of relaxed the rules a little bit of more recent times, but they came out and did a community interview first and foremost. So figuring out, where do you sit in your community? Are you known? Who's your mob? Like it was really like a cultural legitimisation of where you're from, how would we need to support you really well to be able to succeed in that type of thing, or do you have that sort of social and emotional intelligence perhaps? I assume that's what they were trying to check out.
Did you have other peers who were also interested in this? Like, did you have anyone that you were doing this with?
No. So it was just this journey. I was also 16, 17 at the time. So I often kind of make a joke, was young enough and to be so silly in some ways, or silly's probably not the right word, but that no's not a possibility.
Yeah.
So
exactly right.
Yeah, I was just like
that.
Oh, well.
Naive enough to have a go. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I had no understanding of what it was really going to be like. So throw yourself in the deep end. So, so I applied. We had the community interview, and then you were invited. If you were successful from there, you were invited to Newcastle, and you sat in front of a panel of community members there too, but also academics and things that kind of did another extensive interview for you. You had to sit the UMAT test, which I didn't even get my results back, so I have no idea, because that was the biggest topic of discussion when everyone finally did get into medicine was like, oh, what'd you get in your UMAT? And I could honestly say, look, I have no idea. I don't know. I didn't
Were
get
you
my
doing
results.
science type subjects at the time too, or just?
I did biology,
Yeah.
but I didn't do chemistry, and I wasn't a really smart mathematician. That's
I wonder how you did go into UMAT. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because all of those things, math, stats.
Yeah. Maybe I was just really highly socially, emotionally intelligent or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, yeah, did that. And obviously I got in, and my parents were so wonderfully supportive in such that they were like, see how you go. There was no pressure.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, you know. But that would have been now as a parent with my oldest bonus daughter's 18 and about to start chemical engineering, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even quite sure that this is a good idea. But, you know, I've got myself as an example because people would have been saying exactly the same thing about me. She's not going to get through. They were. I knew this. Even our local paper, for example, Mudgee Guardian would not they had other people that got into medicine, but they wouldn't do a story on me because I think that the ethos was that, oh, you know, she's got in through a special entry program and she's never going to make it.
Wow.
So there was a little bit of that, a little bit of community jealousy.
Does that drive you?
Yes, I was going to say the same thing.
But
but it wouldn't for everyone, right? Like that's really dangerous because not everybody would have the fight.
Yes, and it is dangerous, and we'll probably unpack that further in the interview, but it's probably the best and worst thing to ever say to me. If you tell me that I can't do something, I will show you that I will do it.
Yeah.
And if that even meant before, you know, we talked about, did you want to be an astronaut? Like, if someone said you can't do that, and I really had the drive for it, I would do it.
Yeah.
But that comes at a cost as well, which we'll probably unpack. But yeah, that was my journey. So I started at 17. I got some funny things though. The very first day as well, not only was it, what did you get in your UMAT? The other question was, oh, so what school did you go to?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Mudgee High. And people are like, okay, was that a co-ed school? And I was like, what's co-ed?
Yes.
I literally,
Yeah, of course.
hand on heart, had no idea that what a co-ed school was, like that there was other options. That was my only option.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a real big eye-opener.
I bet it was. And so fast forward to this, you know, looking back, we've had 20 years in healthcare.
Yep.
Once you graduated, did you always want to go back and work in remote medicine?
Yeah.
Where have you been? What have you done?
Yeah. So I think, again, and the reason I bring this up about the couple who cared for me when I had my appendix and, you know, birth and blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously I didn't remember that. But those guys were my inspirations of like, what is a doctor? Like, again, I had no other idea of what a medical person was. Like, I didn't know there was things such as dermatologists or cardiothoracic surgeons or that just wasn't in my world.
Can't see.
Well, absolutely. And I've said
especially
that.
in remote locations too.
Yeah, we talked about that with another guest actually because I grew up in a smaller town and my GP, I just thought that's what being a doctor was because
100%.
they knew everything.
Yeah.
Because there was no referral to anyone else.
Yep. And they saw you at the hospital, they saw you at the clinic, they did the operations, and, you know, there still is a concept of that around, which is a rural generalist, which is obviously the path that I took because there was nothing else in my mind, no other pathways laid down in my psyche or whatever that I was going to be anything else. So so I did do the pathway of rural journalism. So the back end of, just running you through the steps really quickly. So the back end of my degree, I actually was one of the pilot students for the first University Department of Rural Health. So I did 2.5 years in Tamworth because, again, Tamworth felt more like home to me. It was more authentic, very country, rather than Newcastle.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Newcastle, but it just wasn't my vibe.
Yeah.
So went up there with a small bunch of other medical students, which was a great thing for me to do as well because I couldn't hide. You know, I was so timid and so shy at uni because I was just imposter syndrome.
I was just going to say, was it imposter syndrome?
Oh, it was crippling, really, really crippling. And probably something that I haven't really dealt with until more recently. And even then, I struggle, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And so there was no one around you? You didn't feel
No.
represented in other areas and similar students on similar pathways?
Look, yes and no.
Yeah.
Newcastle Uni still to this day has produced the most Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander doctors, and there is a reason for that. There is a really awesome support unit, and that's been around since I was there, and basically everyone kind of helps each other, and it becomes like your family, right? So you share resources and talk about things, and I think that was instrumental to my success getting through the degree is having those peers around you. So I did have that, but I know this sounds strange, but I also don't necessarily connect and identify myself as a doctor necessarily, probably because of my upbringing, and I didn't really hang around with other medical students.
Yes.
I was longing for community connection.
Yeah.
So for me, that was getting involved in, the Indigenous netball, the football. Football's always a good, connector of community, and, I guess everything that falls out of those sporting events, the social events that come with it. So I was very connected to the community in Newcastle, and then again in Tamworth as well, because that's what I had known, as my success factors, I guess, to get me through. But I didn't know that instinct. I probably had an instinct for that at the time, but now I look back and I know that they were the positive factors and the influences that got me through. So I think it's really important. And what I try and say to my GP registrars or medical students is to, no matter what nationality they are, is to find your tribe and to have those people around you to support you in a social way, and support you in all different ways, but it keeps that balance, which is so important when you are undertaking a degree that is so intense in some ways, or is perceived to be intense.
Because I imagine very competitive as well in certain worlds of it as well. And I think that coming together to support one another, unfortunately, isn't always
healthy.
Yeah, the case. Yeah.
Yes, and you're so right. The competition was crazy, but I think another really good, it sounds like I'm doing a promotion for Newcastle Uni, but I was about to say,
you should work for them.
Yeah, no, maybe they should put me on the board.
It is good to know for people who might be thinking, where could I go?
Where's my tribe?
If they say,
yeah, because back when I was doing, I'm not quite sure what is happening at the current moment, but there was no such thing as grades. It was like a pass-fail sort of arrangement, which was really quite helpful for someone like myself who would have got swept up in all that competition, and probably did to a certain degree, to be fair. But I think just knowing at the end of the day that when you were, waiting for that moment when your results are about to come out, that it was just pass or fail.
Yeah.
Like, am I moving on to next year or am I not? Like, what's that all about? So I thought that was a positive factor also.
And where's your rural generalist work taken you? You talked about Tamworth, but have you moved around the country? Have you always stayed in key locations?
Yeah, so Tamworth, finished off my degree. I then wanted to have a bit of a metropolitan experience, wanted to throw myself into the deep end, so to speak. So I went to Sydney for 18 months and did some work at RPA in Sydney. And that was amazing, loved it. Huge group of interns and things, and we all got along quite well. And, I really enjoyed living in Newtown, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
But I also didn't complete my whole second year as a JMO there because I'd had enough, had my taste, got the whole vibe of what a tertiary hospital, busy tertiary hospital's like, wasn't my thing. So I then applied early for GP training, got in, and I moved up to the north coast of New South Wales. So did all my GP training, advanced procedural skills at Tweed Heads, which nowadays isn't probably viewed as that rural. Back then it
would have been.
Yeah. So did obstetrics, did emergency, did my GP training out at Murwillumbah. So and it was just beautiful. Just I really enjoyed the community, and just the doctors out there as well were just really great supportive environment. But kind of come to the end of that, and then I saw a locum opportunity through, I don't even know, through my networks for to be a GP registrar, or they were looking for GPs, but they took me as a GP registrar. I was in my final stage over in Port Hedland in Western Australia. So my family were living there. So my brother had moved there with his wife and 3 children many, many years ago. He's in BHP, like train driving and health and safety as well, surprise, surprise. so he was there, and then my dad was also working there as well. So I was like, well, you know, I'll just go for a little bit of a look-see and see what
You hadn't
happens.
been to WA?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I had been there to visit them
Yep.
as a medical student in second year. And there was that pull straight away of like, this is the kind of place that I want to work in. It was so underserviced, and I had such a great exposure as a medical student. I was with the Aboriginal Medical Service, the hospital, RFDS. It was incredible. And not many medical students get that beautiful exposure. Like, you know, you might go all that way and you sit in the hospital for a little while, or it's very difficult now with all the MOUs between unis and services, and, you know, you've got to have someone really motivated to make it all happen. But I'm so glad that back then it wasn't such a thing and I could go out and just have all that exposure. But it was mind-blowing, even as I was 18 then, and I was just like, wow, this is third world medicine, you know? Like, yes, I can do a whole heap of stuff, but why should I be excited about that?
Yeah.
You know, it was, it made a huge impression. So the point of why I Port Hedland was, yes, I had family connection there, but was just really influenced by that, that 8-week placement in second year. So I went over there for a month, extended it to 2. By that stage, I'd had a conversation with, so this was at the Aboriginal Medical Service, Wirraka. Had a conversation with one of the hospital doctors who was trying to poach me, and they succeeded. But she was just like, oh, you know, like, she was young, enthusiastic, a GP rural generalist as well, GP anaesthetist, and, you know, put their WA contract on the table, which I nearly died. I was like, hang on, what? And then I went back to finish off my obstetric stuff, just to tidy up my logbook and that type of thing. And I was talking to my boss about it. I had a great relationship with my boss, who was a big supporter of GP obstetricians as well. And I was like, oh, I've just been offered this. And he was like, mate, that's like $100,000 more than what I get paid. And I'm the area O&G consultant. Because, you know, New South Wales Health. And so, again, it was that whole, oh, my God, like, is this for real, you know? And then I had my GP supervisors also saying to me, are you sure? Are you ready for this? Like, so I was quite fearful actually going there, but it was the best decision I ever made. I signed up for a year thinking, well, you know, I want to see the 2 seasons out, because the wet season, dry season, see if I can cope. 10 years later, I was still there.
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
Yeah, the only reason that I moved back, new relationship, both my parents passed, unfortunately, and just going back between Port Hedland and Mudgee was just so expensive, because I changed my roster to 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, because that was another thing. Like, Port Hedland was so supportive of their workforce. Not just in my situation, but, you know, everybody's unique situation. We had a really good team. And there's a lot of the crew's still there, actually. So I'd love to go back. But anyway, I now have bonus children and a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old.
Where's home now for you then?
Yeah, so I live in Mackay now.
Which
is my husband's, you know, he grew up there. So he's a Murray lad from Mackay. And so the reason that we moved there is for my son, or our son. Yeah, we wanted him to have, you know, beautiful cultural connections growing up, and we're really blessed to have Shannon's nan. So Cleese is, my son's name's Cleese. Cleese is great grandmother in our lives, and the aunties as well. So yeah, it's just that really nice family sort of exposure. Yeah. What
did your Akram Award that you received last year, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, look, that was I'm not really quite sure who nominated me.
I was going to say, and can I ask how it comes about?
Yeah, so you're nominated. And that, I mean, look, it's always very nice to
whoever that was, get in touch.
Yes. Marangul. It's humbling, right? But at the end of the day, you know what? If the community is happy with what I'm doing, then that's my award. So I go to work for community. I don't go to work to chase awards or accolades or some would say that I go to chase letters because I do have, and that's the imposter syndrome, you see, and being a female. I'm a letter chaser, but I'm not an award chaser per se, but I enjoy doing really innovative, community-driven work. And I think that that's probably the driver for perhaps where the notification. Nomination came from. Yeah. So I've been able to do some really interesting projects more recently. So bounce off. So rural generalism, moved to the East Coast, had a baby. Obviously your life changes. Yeah. You're starting to think about motherhood and how to be the best mum, and being a rural generalist and being on call all the time is actually really, really difficult to balance. So I started looking for project work from home and wanting to use my other areas of expertise, and that being, cultural safety. And I'm really interested and fascinated by governance and making our workplaces a great space to go to work, right? They should be healthy, happy, safe. We should be giving from a full cup, like a reference before. So my first project was, I was the project lead for a Better Culture, which is, I'm not sure if you guys were aware of that, but it was a project that was headed up by the Commonwealth and then auspiced through RACMA College, so the Medical Administration College. And I applied for that. I think I was the only applicant, but anyway.
Talk about imposter syndrome. You're the only applicant. Okay.
Yeah. So they didn't have many choices, but here I am.
Yeah.
And why do you think, you joke about that, but that's a really difficult space to work in and to have impact in and to actually influence change.
It is.
Because there's so much that goes into that.
100%.
So why did you want that job that maybe others didn't?
Yeah. Great call, because there was parts of during that job that I really thought I'd made the wrong decision. Because what it highlighted to me actually is that our systems continually are created not for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And when we're talking about the health and well-being of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander trainees, which was my role to look at the research and look at the medical training survey year on year that demonstrates that, our medical trainees overall are still experiencing unacceptable rates of bullying, harassment, discrimination and sexual harassment. But more so in our First Nations colleagues. Like, we're a finite number of people as it is, right? We have a very important impact in our health system, but the system doesn't support us. It continues to marginalise the very people that are needed to try and make a difference. So going back to your question, look, I did apply for the role thinking it was really exciting, that there's great opportunity here, there's a real need that's been identified. There's, the Department of Health and Ageing have obviously put it on their radar as something important to address, so, that's a positive. But again, the way in which the structure of that whole project was developed well before there was any First Nations input. So there was still elements of that project that screamed of tokenism, having the one Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person, making the comments and things, which I was trying to push against all the time, saying this is not true cultural governance. This is not how we operate in our spaces. We're a collective voice. I am, a Wiradjuri, which is a Wiradjuri woman. I can only really speak from my Wiradjuri background. I can't talk for people from Torres Strait. I can't talk for the Murrays of North Queensland. I can't talk for the people in WA. So my passion now is really trying to influence, and I have got a space, which is great, but influence, organisations, the Commonwealth, the systems, essentially, to be able to embed cultural governance from the outset when we're talking about developing systems. Because like the age-old thing, I used to use this quote from Uncle Lewis Peach, actually, which I'm not sure it's actually his, but, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu, was often the quote, right? But I actually want to go further than that. I think that if we're not designing the table and we're not deciding who's at the table, then the systems are never going to change. So what I'm trying to influence in my way that I can is to say that, all these words that are used in these high-level documents and policy documents about power shifting and, First Nations voices being privileged, and that, that we need to be involved early in the way in which, we are undertaking governance, they need to be operationalised. Like at the current moment, it's all just fluff.
Yeah.
They're just
Words on a
words
page.
on a page. You've got your RAPs, you've got your closing the gap policy documents, you've got, words like collaboration and consultation and co-design but when I see these from a First Nations person's perspective, that doesn't happen. Like, we need to be there guiding what that looks like. And at the end of the day, we're trying to develop a culturally safe system, right? And cultural safety, by definition, can only be defined by the people in which are receiving the care. So unless we are asking our communities, our patients, and the receivers of that care, was that safe for you? Were you listened to? Did you feel respected? Do you feel like you had the opportunity to be able to, challenge and ask and, and request more knowledge and have the opportunity to go away and discuss it with your family members? And until that happens, we do not have a culturally safe system. So I don't care. People can run around and say all they like, because I hear it often, we're culturally safe. You're not. You're not, unless the community in which you're providing the care to is saying that you are. And the problem is no one's doing that work.
And nobody wants to ask.
Well, I think they're scared. I think they're scared of,
it's like you ask for feedback, then people have to, what do you do with that feedback? So
correct.
Is it a resources? Is it a...
People don't know how to do it. And this is a piece in which that I'm passionate about, is about cultural governance, because, ACCHO settings, so the Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisations, come with their own beautiful, already designed cultural governance boards. So those services are designed and influenced by the community board. Yep. So what we need to do as a system is develop essentially like boards or committees or, groups of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of that are representative of whatever that is, the system that you're trying to put together, and have the authority, not just, the ticker box tokenistic kind of, we've consulted, but help them really help whatever organisation or system that is do that work, because it isn't actually that difficult if you break it down. It's about legitimately having those connections with community to be able to grab the voices that you need to bring back the information. But the trouble is, I still believe, this is my opinion, of course, but there's fear in that intersection. People don't know how to ask, who to ask, why to ask. And I still think, actually, that people are quite confused about, even the whole trajectory between cultural awareness through to cultural safety and what do all those things mean. And instead of just sitting back and asking those questions and really listening, I think that's what people miss a lot. We're just getting nowhere. So,
and I guess if you,
No.
I was going to say you worked in hospital settings or state government settings, and then if you worked in, Aboriginal controlled community settings and different healthcare, are you seeing a difference then between the community being really involved in some of those remote areas and the, the AMS or versus the state government?
Yeah, definitely. So I think when ACCHO settings, so the community controlled organisations, are actually truly given the opportunity and power to be able to lead with what their community needs are, there are actually really positive outcomes. And this is true, right? Like ACCHOs have got beautiful wraparound services. They're often not just doctor-led. Well, it's not doctor-led, it's community-led, first of all. They don't just have doctors in their settings. They've often got, if they can, depends on the workforce, I guess. But, other allied health professionals, you've got your Aboriginal health workers, which they are so pinnacle to the success of our organisations and the connection to community and the representation in which they bring. Like, when I go to work in the ACCHO setting that I now work in, so Mackay, Arches, it's none of the programs are for me to design. I'm there to facilitate what community wants. And it is so refreshing to be able to go to work and do that work knowing that you have the backing of your community to go, Sarah Jane, like it's like this. We haven't had shared antenatal care services for however long, and our women are just not getting care. Can you do something about that? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me at it. So,
as opposed to someone in another state saying that you should add some services here because you should.
Yeah. Or you should use the framework of birthing on country in every ARCHO service. That doesn't even work. Yeah, you can't use a framework and then just cookie cut it everywhere. It needs to still be operationalised from a community grounded perspective, which sometimes that might not mean, turning it on its head completely, but it's still making sure that the uniqueness of it meets community need, and the minutiae there is about what that community wants. But yeah, I've really enjoyed stepping into positions finally where I feel like not only my clinical experience, but also my cultural governance and subject matter expertise in that regard have collided, and that I'm feeling as though that, whether I'm listened to or not is another thing, but at least I'm able to advocate in this way. And I have had lots of really intense conversations of recent times as well with high level bodies about, well, no, if you can't support my, a cultural governance committee that I'm trying to put together financially in the way in which they should be done, then I'm not doing the work, because you need to value our knowledge. We come with, I'm 43 years old, 44 this year, oh my God. Anyway.
In good company.
Yeah.
Yes, just thinking that, I'm like.
Yeah, but, this is the time that you want to step up and you want to bring all those elements. I've got 44 years of being an Aboriginal person up my belt, as well as 22 years of being,
in this setting.
Yeah. So it's time. It's time that, the new younger leaders of our medical world come to the fore as well. So, I've talking about mentors and things way back in the earlier questions, I've always really admired people like Professor Nairi Brown, and there's a whole raft of them. But Uncle Lewis Peachy and Uncle Mark Winnetong and those type of people are just, they've been the forefront runners of this whole, movement of First Nations medical students and doctors, and have really been there doing the hard yards, even though some days I feel like I'm still doing the hard yards, but obviously it's in a different way.
So you've talked a few times about creating a happy healthcare and not pouring from an empty cup. Are there any, easy wins that you think are right in front of us that we could be grabbing on now that could help our healthcare professionals to not be pouring from an empty cup?
Yeah, I think there's not enough education throughout, well, certainly in my days, about that whole sense of self-wellness, or, where are you really sitting in terms of your level of burnout or not. A lot of our medical profession are burnt out. And
why do you think that is?
All the reasons that we've talked about, we're working with a system that hasn't not only not been, designed for First Nations people, but hasn't been designed certainly for other nationalities, and if we look at the cohort of the population of doctors that we have, everyone's sort of working in this system that's not for them or represents them. And I understand it's a system for a reason, and obviously has to have some kind of parameters, right? But I think it comes down to individually just really checking in and working out where you're at. I've certainly gone through some long periods of burnout, and now in retrospect, there's times when I shouldn't have been working. And I think I was talking to it was not a medical person the other day, but they were talking about having doona days and that type of thing, and just, some days in the calendar in which, yes, I guess it's a sick day, but you don't have to have an explanation for it. You don't have to have that stress. It's just you know what, I can't do work today. And that's just where I'm at. Which
that must
Does
be
that feel quite like foreign for a healthcare
particularly when
professional?
and if you're in a regional or rural remote setting where if you don't show up, no one shows up.
Yep.
That must just be an extra layer.
Yeah. The obligation is intense. So that there's the obligation to community, the obligation to your patients, the obligation to your family as well, making sure that they're, managed. And then the kind of people that medicine attracts is these type A. I'm one of them. Like type A go-getters. Tell me I can't do something, I'll do it anyway. People who don't always have their values aligned to having a healthy, happy, well-supported life. So it's only of recent times that, like, I've just decided that I personally can't work 40 hours a week anymore. Just can't do it. So I probably work on average 28. But there was years and years and years of my career where I was working 60, 70, 80. Like, even as an intern, I loved it. I honestly relished finally when I came out of med school, and just that whole concept of, holy shit, like, I'm getting paid for this. Like, I'm getting paid for something that I actually love. But was doing 14-hour shifts, like, regularly, telling all the other interns, no, if you don't want your shift, I'll do it. But at what cost, you know?
It's not sustainable.
No, not forever.
I guess that's where then we're seeing that shift now. We've spoken to a number of healthcare professionals who are pursuing creative interests now, and content creation and blogging, and you said you're working 28 hours. Are there other passions that you're pursuing in those other hours? Yeah,
and I've been really conscious to try and continue those recently. So my kind of passion started really strangely, to be fair. So I really love fashion, and I particularly love First Nations fashion. So back in when I'll take you back to Port Hedland days. So I love the races as well. So, putting fashion, races, all of that together.
Dressing up.
Yes, because there was not many opportunities in Port Hedland to do that.
Yeah.
So you have to travel a bit,
Well, they actually come up with this concept. This was the inaugural year of this Fashions in the Field competition, where they were, so this is WA state, all the different regions, you could go, do your Fashions in the Field, put an outfit together, walk the catwalk and see how you went, essentially. So I put an outfit together, and it was completely hired. So head to toe was hired, and really didn't think too much about that. But my husband and I were going to go to the Broom Cup. So I had, poured myself into this Broom Cup outfit, thought it was going to be amazing. And just went into this competition thinking, I'll give it a crack. Anyhow, I won that heat. And then out of that, all the different girls, so you had Kimberley, Pilbara, Southwest region, all the different regions, met in Perth, and then there was this like 3-day extravaganza.
This is proper. This is like...
Oh, yeah.
This is not like when we go...
No, it was wonderful. Like, the first prize for the heat was like, I mean, it's dependent on the individual race clubs, but it was a $2,500 travel voucher or something.
Oh, wow.
It was quite decent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got flown to Perth, 3 days, like I said.
Wow.
Food, wine, like you were really pampered.
Treated,
Yes, it was really great. And the other girls were wonderful. Like, I met some friends that they still doing Fashions in the Field and nailing it. So the girls that I was sort of hanging out with at the time have taken out Melbourne Cup Fashions recently, many times, a few of them. But yeah, anyway, so I went down to Perth, and it was a $25,000 prize, and I won.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what the hell?
Wow.
Yeah,
incredible.
it's like $10,000 cash.
Yeah.
Trip to New York, what am I talking about? Hong Kong, God. And some jewellery and flowers and all that kind of stuff. So that just sparked my interest in fashions in the field. It sort of all started there. And at the same time, in Port Hedland as well, on the hiring side of things, I just had this passion to try and increase the availability of nice clothes, because I'm a fashion addict, to the rest of the community, right? So I started a little hiring business called Glamour and the Dust, and people could come and borrow items from me, and it was more of a social community rather than anything. But my idea with that was to try and leverage from fashion and then talk about health and wellness and well-being, and to try and go out to the school communities and use this platform. This is early days influencer style.
Yeah, you're ahead
I'm
of your
talking
time.
2017.
Yeah.
And then I was really keen to try and find some First Nations fashion to also, to showcase, right? There was nothing around in 2017, but there's just like a flood now of different designers. I'm wearing my Mimi
I was
and
about to say,
Jinder.
who are you wearing today?
Yeah, so this is Mimi and Jinder. They're actually fairly local to here. So Coffs Harbour family group. So it's Mimi and Jinder is like grandma and daughter. So in their language.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Melissa Greenwood is one of the designers' names, and her mum or nan.
We'll have to drop their details in the show notes.
Beautiful. Yeah, and my other favourite is Mara. So Julie Shaw, he heads up the Mara Collective, and I often rock her. I was texting her actually before the podcast going, Sissy, are you around to like send me some clothes? She goes, oh, babe, you need to give me some more time. And then I realised that I packed these pants anyway because I just love them. But yeah, going back to that, so there was no First Nations fashion, sort of like high-end fashion or available. And now there's an explosion. But the reason I started all of those kind of initiatives and my thought process behind all of that is that I was in such a man's world in Port Hedland. There wasn't very many places to go out to dress up.
Big
to look
mining
nice.
town.
Mining town. But there was a plethora of young girls who wanted to do that,
to be dressed,
right?
yeah.
Like mining towns attract usually younger crews, you know, women who like, childbearing age or thereabouts or what have you, and people who are adventurous and wanted to go there to make something of themselves, you know, get ahead. Great place to go and do it. But, not very many opportunities. So I used to kind of, again, it's my rebellious streak coming out, like wear lots of, over-the-top stuff to work.
Did you?
Used to wear heels all the time in a place like Port Hedland when everybody else is in high-vis and, work boots. But, it was just kind of like this rebellious branding of, you know what, we're in this raw, rustic, I think it's absolutely stunning, the landscape in Port Hedland and surrounds, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. But I wanted to just stay grounded in the femininity of it, because when you're working in a place that's like 4-to-1 male to female ratio, surrounded by, all of the high-vis, it kind of gets monotonous after a while.
Yeah.
So, that was my aim, to try and like bring back some of that feminine energy, which I feel like I was losing. Like medicine is so like cutthroat in such that, problem solve all the time, or
it's quite a lot of that masculine energy too. There's not that nice creative flow.
Which I find is interesting, right? Because more women these days want to do medicine than men, generally speaking. I think the ratio is just a little higher for women. I haven't seen the stats recently, but it is very difficult, I think, in that space to try and kind of continue to capture that essence of trying to balance things out from an energy point of view if you're into all of that, which I am. But
I guess if you think about, women for a long time trying to make sure that they're equal and various things like that, then you can lose those feminine elements because you almost feel you have to, or if you're in a male-dominated area, you almost feel you need to be a certain way.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful to think you can still retain those parts of yourself. And I guess that brings us to International Women's Day this year. I guess, what does that mean to you? Or I think this year the theme is balance the scales.
Yep.
So I guess talking about that, what does that mean to you?
Where are the scales most out of balance?
Yeah, it means hard work. Which is sad to say, but it is difficult to balance a life of continual obligation, where you're always technically on. So even putting boundaries around things like, I'm really cutthroat around Christmas and New Year, and when my husband and I go tools down, and I'm like, right, that's it. Put your laptop down. He's also an Aboriginal doctor as well, so we've got a huge family that have expectations. It's not just our family either, it's like community too, that, brothers, come on, can't you do a medical certificate for us? Can't you? Can you just do us a quick script? You
go to a social event and you're just like,
what's the results for that? Or, just, like it never ends, right? And, again, that sense of obligation to always give and serve and do well, particularly because of our backgrounds, I suppose, and the different values that we bring into our whys for doing medicine and all of that kind of thing. But getting balance right without going too far is quite tricky, because people get quite offended when you're like, no, sorry, I'm on holidays. But why should it be that difficult, right?
It's like...
But nowadays also I'm really been more and more strict as well, trying to put my family first, and particularly my son. You know, like I'm an older mum, and like everyone says, it goes so quick, and they just grow up in front of your eyes, right? So I have, even on my email signature, it's like, I work these days. I work doing this, this and this. And I even told my GP registrars recently, we were lucky enough to get 3 of them, and I said, girls, like ladies, I don't want you to be back after 5 o'clock. I want you to make sure that you're having your lunch breaks. I don't want you to answer emails on the weekend. You won't get one from me. I said, because I won't be answering you after 5 p.m. on a Friday. It's not happening, not happening in our organisation. So I think it's trying to shift that whole ethos of that feeling that you continually have to give, because we've got to just draw a line in the sand, I think, to try and tip that balance back to being equal. And that, you know, as selfish as it sounds sometimes, I suppose, but you just need to do what's right for you first, and what's important to in your patch. And if that's family, then that's it. If it's work, that's great too. But still, I think there needs to be some kind of caveats around that you're doing it healthily and safely. Safely is the other important thing, you know. If you're overworked and you don't have the balance right, then you lose perspective. And I think that that can probably lead to a lot of decisions that are made that aren't probably the right one. If you were more balanced and were more rested and did look after your own health, I'm a big advocate as well for our doctors particularly to really stop for a minute and look at their own health, because there's so many around that are not fit. I'm not saying that fitness is everything, but I'm just talking about just generally abiding by our own suggestions.
Just what you preach.
Yeah, it's not actually that difficult to eat well, to exercise, to do all of those things, because it brings the balance back, it makes you a better person. You can give from a fuller cup, maybe not the fullest, but yeah, I think it's a great thing. And I think it is something that, particularly as women, we need to speak about and consider and reflect on, do some personal reflection about, you know, where you're sitting and how you can do things better. Like, I'm forever hitting Kevin up, my mate Kevin from ChatGPT. No, truly, you should see some of the little things in my library. Like, it's about longevity and how do I increase my VO2 max so that, you know, so I'm going to be around for a bit longer for my son, and really trying to get down into the minutiae. It's probably taking the balance a little bit too far, but Kevin's forever telling me, you got this, you know, you're already doing all these things really well. But I think that we all need to just take stock of where we're sitting and take some personal responsibility as well for feeling happy and well and safe and grounded and balanced, and all of those things that everyone, you know, tries so hard to get to. But like I said, it is work. You do have to do that work.
It's interesting what you said about taking the personal responsibility too, because I think sometimes we look to others to create that wellness for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're trying to outsource it, and, you know, you need your employer to do X or you need this, whereas it's actually like, what do you need to be successful? What do you need to be well?
It's like there's no point in hiring a personal trainer if you're not going to do the work,
right? Yeah, I can speak.
And
from
so, or, you know, get a gym membership. That's a classic, right?
Yeah, get the membership, and then
absolutely. You look back on your history and you go, oh, okay, well, I went 5 times in 3 months. That was really great financial
Probably,
decision.
yes.
Yeah, totally. Did you mention in our conversation that you'd wanted to be on Play School?
Oh, yes.
Or, like, what else is there on your vision board? I mean, obviously, being on this podcast was a vision board, for 2026. We've done that.
And, look, you know.
What else?
I really would love. I think Play School's missing a doctor, yeah?
Yeah, I also think you'd be amazing on there.
Thank you.
So Play School, what else?
I have actually enrolled this year in, as you do, in a Masters of Legal and... what is it actually called? It's bridging law and medicine together. With the outcome for me is to try and really solidify more of this cultural governance and more of that type of authority into what I do every day. So there is a class action that's happening for some poor outcomes in healthcare and mob up in the Torres and the Cape. And I'm just trying to get myself prepared because I'd like to be on that team as well, just advocating for, some of the potential, you know, well, not potential, if there's a class action, there has been some cultural harm and also some medical harm that's occurred out of that, and really advocate for our people from that perspective.
With your episode, CMR are going to be donating to a charity of your choice. Sort of, where can we talk about today for you?
So I think, that's a tricky one. I think, so the most obvious for me would be the Australian Indigenous Doctors Association, but if we could specify that goes to rural women, like maybe, I don't know, some kind. I'm not sure how much you guys are donating, but it could potentially go towards a scholarship or something for them to attend the annual conference or something like that would be great, because it is those places where we see the people that are doing the work, and that light for them hopefully gets brighter, because like we say, you can't see what you can't be what you can't see. Sorry, yes. So I think that would be the most influential spot for the money to go in terms of, you know, creating the next round of rebellious, ambitious, you know, young First Nations women doctors that are just not going to be told no, and just keep going and keep pushing, because there's a lot of discomfort in challenging systems that weren't designed for us. And I see that every day. And I'm sure I've been called many names around some of the advocacy work that I've been trying to do, but I don't care, because someone has to do it, and our communities rely on it. And I think that's what I've been put on this earth to do, is to use my lippy mouth to challenge and advocate for the people who, you know, don't have the opportunity to do that themselves. So I try and balance that out with the soft elements, like being the doctor in play school and having fun. But what a cool role model would that be, like modelling episode for my son as well. Be like, oh my God, my mum is on play school. Yeah, boy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Sarah Jane, I can totally see why you were nominated for that award, and how lucky we are that you were put on this earth, because you are one inspiring lady.
Thank you.
Healthcare, now law, modelling, ambassador, governance, author down the line, like best play school host, all of the things. Like, you are so many things.
Thank you.
And so inspiring. We've been so lucky to have a yarn with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We care for the land and sea.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land of which we meet, who for centuries have shared ancient methods of healing and cared for their communities. We pay our respects to elders past and present.